Welcome to my channel. Sit back and listen to the best true crime stories. Let's go. Imagine you've been planning your vacation for months in a tropical country on the shores of a gorgeous millennial lake. It's your dream you've been yearning for, to be alone with nature, to be cleansed, to be energized. And so, you embark on a long-awaited trip that becomes your last. In October 2023, a young girl, Nancy Ng, went on vacation to Guatemala and did not return home. Currently, no one knows the fate of the girl, whether she is alive or dead. At the same time, all the people who can shed light on her mysterious disappearance remain silent. This case is relatively fresh and is unfolding right before our eyes. What do we know about Nancy Ng? Nancy Ng lived in the small provincial town of Monterey Park, California, 11 kilometers from Los Angeles, which as of 2020 had a population of just over 60,000 people. She graduated from law school at the University of California, Los Angeles. After her studies, she worked with special needs children in the Alhambra Unified School District. Nancy had 2 brothers and a sister. Her family describes her as a loving and full of life, positive person. And the nature of Nancy's work already spoke volumes about her as a person. She loves yoga, traveling, hiking with her family, and cuddling with her cat. She has a kind heart, a big smile, and can talk to anyone about anything. She is a caring daughter, a loving sister, and a supportive friend, is how her family describes her. Guatemala is a heavenly place. Nancy had been planning a trip to Guatemala for a long time, and her family knew about it. No wonder she chose this country for her vacation for the second time. Guatemala, a small tropical country located in Central America, is a popular vacation destination for tourists due to the beauty of its nature and rich historical cultural heritage. It is a mountainous country, home to more than 4 dozen volcanoes, and the mid to high Cordillera, Cucumatanes, and Sierra Madre mountain ranges, which stretch from north to south. She used to say it was so beautiful up there, recalls Nikki, Nancy's sister. Last year, she woke up every morning to spend some time there by herself, without a group, and this year promised to be more interesting because they had activities planned at the lake. It is in Guatemala that one of Central America's most famous landmarks is located, the extraordinarily beautiful Lake Atitlán in the crater of a volcano that is 340 meters deep. The lake of volcanic origin was formed about 100,000 years ago. The picturesque shores of the lake have long been inhabited by Mayan tribes with their unique culture before the arrival of the conquistadors. Mayan descendants still live around the lake today. Lake Atitlán is now a World Heritage Site and a tourist attraction. Chronology of events: on October 14, 2023, Nancy Ng embarks on a week-long yoga retreat to Guatemala called Be the Change, with a group of 10 people led by yoga teacher Eduardo Rimat. They are staying at the Hotel Isla Verde on the shores of Lake Atitlán. In general, yoga practice has been gaining momentum in recent years. People want to get rid of stress, which gives them daily routine and nervous work in big cities. A retreat is a retreat for bodily and/or meditative practice. A yoga retreat is a deep immersion practice in seclusion from society. A yoga retreat is a wonderful way to undergo a spiritual reset, to find oneself in a new atmosphere, to get away from the daily routine, and to switch to learning about the physical and psychological capabilities of the body. A person goes on a yoga retreat if he or she feels the urgent need to put life on pause, to look at it from the outside in a detached way. Then he returns to the familiar world renewed, inspired, with a clear understanding of goals and desires. Apparently, that's what Nancy was missing. On October 19, 2023, at 10 a.m., the yoga retreat group rents kayaks from Kayak Guatemala and rafts down Lake Atitlán. The last person to see Nancy Ng still alive is Christina Blazek, who was a member of the yoga retreat group. What happened next we only know from her words. Christina's account of events is as follows. She did not know Nancy and just met her, only running into her on the lake when they were rafting kayaks. She and Nancy swam away from the group as everyone else headed back toward shore. The approximate time of the incident was between 10:30 a.m. and 12 noon. Christina said that Nancy wanted to go for a swim and jumped out of her kayak and then drowned instantly. As Christina tried to grab Nancy's kayak, she put one foot in her kayak and the other in her own, and then when she turned around, Nancy went underwater. She then turned and swam back to shore. Lee and Elaine Beal, owners of a kayak rental company in Guatemala City, said 8 members of the group returned, but they could see Ying and another woman's kayak on the lake. They lost sight of them, at which point a distress call was made. Afterward, one of the women returned to shore. The owners of the rented kayaks did not know that anyone in the group was missing until they tried to get payment for the rental and found out that the entire group had left the next day without informing anyone about the disappearance of a member of the group, neither the hotel staff nor the police. As a reminder, the yoga retreat was supposed to last until October 21st, and the group cut it short 2 days earlier. On October 20th to 21st, 2023, a Black Wolf helicopter search and rescue team hired by Nancy Ying's family searched both sides of the lake and used search patterns based on where Nancy was staying, where she was last seen, and wind and current patterns over the past few days. A team of boats went out to sea and surveyed the surface around where she was last seen. They dispatched a team of divers who were able to reach a depth of 40 meters. However, the area where Nancy went missing is at a depth of about 300 meters. Unfortunately, the efforts of the searchers did not result in any sign of Nancy other than the discovery of her empty kayak. On October 23, 2023, the Guatemalan Naval Patrol ends the search because 72 hours have passed since she was first reported missing. Efforts to enlist other search methods are still ongoing. At this time, Nancy Ing has not been found dead or alive. What happened to Nancy Ing? Versions of what happened.
1. Accident 1.1.
Drowning. This is the most common version of what happened to Nancy Ing. She and Christina Blazek had swum far enough from shore to the center of the lake. Nancy wanted to swim and left the kayak, but she couldn't handle the waters. According to witnesses, there were high waves where Nancy decided to swim. Nancy couldn't handle them. She had a sudden panic convulsion. She felt sick and went down. And Blazek, who was with her, either didn't notice it or noticed it, but decided not to save her. In favor of this case is the fact that the Ing family received a call on October 19th informing them that Nancy Ing was no longer with them. The details of this call and who exactly called are unknown. The family themselves tried to call Nancy, but the problem was that she was out of range. The yoga retreat program implied a complete refusal of phones for the duration of the trip. It is noteworthy that Christine Blazek gave at least some testimony only 4 weeks after Nancy's disappearance, and that was after her name somehow surfaced in the media. But even then, Blazek had not made contact with the missing person's family and only spoke through her attorney Christopher Gardner. He also stated that Christina Blazek was too traumatized to speak out sooner. So, according to Blazek's attorney, she and Nancy did not kayak together at all, but met by chance on the water. The Ing family did not dispute Blazek's recollection of the events, but expressed doubts about the inconsistencies they claimed to have heard about from other unnamed sources. What we do not understand are the inconsistencies between the direct statements provided by attorney and the various secondhand accounts of her story that we have heard from others, they said in a GoFundMe update published on November 21, 2023. It begs the question, why didn't the only essentially eyewitness who last saw Nancy alive provide valuable testimony in the early days of the search when any information was important? Lake Atitlán is huge, and volunteers have been combing through large areas of it all these 4 weeks. And how does someone who is an attorney herself not realize that the count in a case like this is in minutes? It's possible that Christina intervened on her own, thinking that she was to help save Eduardo Ramada's reputation as a guide and instructor, considering that if harmless accident did occur on the tour, he could still be held responsible as a guide. Eduardo Ramada told NBC News that Kayak Guatemala, the company that rented out kayaks and surfboards to the retreat group, did not offer life jackets to anyone and that no precautions were taken, as confirmed by another group member who wished to remain anonymous. However, the owners of the company gave a comment to Inside Edition that they offer customers a choice of life jackets and it is MH's decision whether or not to take them. This group did not take the life jackets on that fateful day. It was an arrogant decision because unfortunately Lake Atitlán is also known for the occasional drowning. 1.2 The accident did not happen on the lake, But elsewhere, kayak excursions include risky cliff diving or rope swings. Could something have happened earlier that Eddie didn't want to be financially responsible for? And so they brought Nancy's kayak back with them to instead make it look like drowning when the excursion was over? In which case, was there an accident? The Eddie's Retreat website says nothing about cliff jumping. Maybe within the 1 hour that the group had kayaks, he could have taken them to some secret cliff jumping site that hasn't been vetted for safety. The Kayak Guatemala website offers both free kayaking and cliff jumping kayaking. 2. Criminal 2.1 Unintentional murder. The most suspicious element in this story, in my opinion, is why everyone else involved changed their flights and silently left without asking any questions or making any statements. The man is missing and the group immediately goes to the hotel, packs up, and leaves the country in a hurry within 12 hours of the incident. There is also evidence that the yoga instructor and other retreat attendees went through Nancy's belongings and searched her room before leaving the country. Chris Sharp, a member of Guatemala-based Black Wolf Helicopters who led the search for Nancy, said he believes the circumstances of her disappearance may be suspicious. To me, it now becomes a criminal investigation because the witnesses who were there at the time don't show up, he said. Is it possible that the whole group conspired and left Nancy in grave danger? But how is that possible? After all, they are all adults. Did no one's heart waver and they all left her to die alone? These questions have plagued American society, and some have accused the yoga retreat group of racism. In my opinion, it is more likely that a few people saw something that they don't want to talk about. They keep quiet so the truth doesn't come out. There is a theory that all the members of the group were high or had drugs in their system and were afraid of going to jail during the investigation, even if it was an accident. Guatemalan yoga retreats are reportedly known for taking ayahuasca or other naturally and synthetically derived psychedelic drugs. Ayahuasca is a sacred plant mixture used for thousands of years by indigenous cultures in the Amazon region. Over the past few decades, the psychoactive drink has generated significant interest among Westerners, often as a treatment for depression, anxiety, or addiction, or to achieve greater spiritual understanding. The hotel where the yoga retreat group is staying does not specifically advertise or state that they participate in these types of practices, yet at the same time many others are practicing hallucinogens in that area. But if Nancy had an accident, why have none of the at least 9 people never told us what happened to her? Perhaps because they feel fear of being judged and shame, so they remain silent. Some also speculate that they are also going through a program with Eddie in Pasadena or somewhere else where they are trained to be obedient, indoctrinated. Some suggest that it was Blazek who bribed them. However, there are media reports that the FBI says the witnesses are cooperating with them. A very unorthodox and questionable individual is Yogi Eddie, aka Eduardo Remeda, who was the organizer and instructor of the ill-fated retreat. All we know about him is that he taught yoga in Los Angeles, Pasadena, and Koreatown. Since the incident, he has cleared all of his social media of any mention of Nancy, the retreat's togger, blocked anyone who mentions her, and made his social media accounts private. He also accuses his family of making him look bad, while they have only begged him for weeks for help, which he has not given. There have also been numerous reports of him inappropriately touched female students, and that he is a narcissist with a cult of hot 8 yoga studio followers. Eduardo's sexual harassment was testified to on social media by Alexa R., a former student of his who is also a yoga instructor. According to her, he kicked her out of his class after she asked him not to touch her. Notably, Eddie Remeda is still teaching at Hot 8 Yoga, a studio that officially asks their clients not to discuss Nancy Ing, who attended their yoga classes. 2.2 Sail into slavery. According to the testimonies of family and friends, Nancy was a good swimmer and was capable of backing herself into a kayak. Some believe that Christina Blazek's story is implausible. They suggest that Christina lured her out of sight of the group, according to the owners of the rental kayaks. Nancy would be gullible since she knew Christina and was obviously physically capable of paddling farther. Christina Blazek has a murky past. She is known to have filed for several restraining orders against 3 people, including at least 2 domestic violence cases, including one against her father in 2020 over a home that was foreclosed on in 2020, plus some other small claims cases. It sounds like she may have had financial problems, too. She was also a longtime bartender before working for H. Weinstein, through whom she likely developed some connections. Some are actually speculating that Christina is involved in trafficking. Guatemala is known to have one of the highest crime rates among Central American countries. According to the Global Peace Index 2021, Guatemala ranked 111th out of 163 in terms of security. The country has incredibly advanced all types of crime, from harmless, all-encompassing corruption to well-organized gangs. There are high crime areas around Lake Atitlán that could be a convenient place for human trafficking. Lure Nancy out of the group, tell her she drowned, take her away in a motorboat. In a motorboat. No witnesses, country virtually shut down due to protests, instability due to riots. Another fact about Christina Blazek's background is that her lawyer has a public lawsuit filed against him by several of his own employees for sexual assault and coercion, which he had to settle for $3 million. This version, however, is a stretch. Traffickers tend to target vulnerable people. It didn't make sense to kidnap a well-to-do American tourist from a large company, and it would have been extremely difficult to harm anyone in a kayak in an open lake. And what motive did she have to kill Nancy? She seems to have a much greater profit motive, given her past and known associates. An investigation is currently underway, involving the FBI and the U.S. State Department. This case is a clear indication of how someone's indifference can affect a person's fate.